Mike Tyson was indicted today.
Mike Tyson says he's innocent, so that's all I'm going with that.
He was starting to learn that he could get away with things that other people with less talent could not get away with.
And Tyson looked at one kid. I'll win. I always win.
He's a thug.
Hi, I'm Carl Ravitch. Welcome to this edition of SportsCenter Flashback, where from time to time we're going to take a look back at some of the most compelling stories SportsCenter has covered from the desk behind me and those that came before it. In 1991, just over 1 year removed from losing the heavyweight title to Buster Douglas, Mike Tyson was preparing to challenge the current champ, Evander Holyfield. In July, Tyson went to Indianapolis for a Black Expo, which included the Miss Black America beauty pageant. Among the contestants was a young lady from Rhode Island named Desiree Washington. Tyson introduced himself to Washington at a pageant rehearsal and later agreed to meet her that night. What transpired between them in the early morning hours of July 19, 1991 led to an accusation of rape against the former heavyweight champion.
All we heard was that there was a celebrity involved. And then as the days went on, like Friday, then it came out who it was.
Tyson, it was no secret to anybody inside boxing, was roaming the sexual landscape in a very free way.
A Marion County grand jury in Indiana is going to decide whether charges should be filed against the former heavyweight champion who is accused of raping a woman, reported to be a contestant of the Miss Black America contest, which took place in Indianapolis 2 weeks ago.
Even at that point, he'd had so many other personal issues, and there had been so many whispers within the sport about his behavior toward women and issues that he'd already had.
We're talking to women in Hollywood parties. He said, doctor, come to see me just because who I am. They think I'm an animal, some kind of gorilla. And they don't want it. They don't know me. They don't want to know me. They just want to know this savage guy. Well, they want to know a savage guy. I'm going to give him a savage guy.
The woman comes so strong to him. He doesn't know if the woman likes him for Mike. If you strip Mike of the money, of the cars that he has, just put him alone someplace, if the same woman would love him as a Mike. So that's why he's confused.
I think even when he was an amateur or custom model, he was starting to learn that he could get away with things that other people with less talent could not get away with.
I met Tyson when he was 13 years old and just starting out with cuss. He had just been released from Tryon Reformatory. He had been arrested 38 times.
He said that he used to pickpocket a lot. And he said that he used to go into a public bus and the driver, the chauffeur would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, watch your pockets." And he says, I waited until he made that announcement, then I would take the wallets.
His MO was to stand outside of a supermarket, offer to take an old lady's groceries back to the projects, smile, be a chameleon, get the old lady in the elevator, knock her out, and steal her pocketbook. And that's the kind of guy he was.
Hello, my name is Desiree. My ideal mate is athletic, and baseball is what he likes to play. He'll argue his case with specific times and dates, because I love a man who loves to debate.
I mean, Desiree was an attractive girl. She was just a kid. She was just starting her freshman year in college that fall. She's a very fine young person. She was bright and had a great future in front of her.
You know, you got an 18-year-old girl who's in front of a superstar who her father looked up to and many people in the black community looked up to, particularly at that time. And you had Tyson, whose sexual appetites were, you know, fairly well documented.
Oh, I'm in a dream day after day. Beautiful women, such an array. What can I say?
6 weeks ago tonight, a contestant in the Miss Black America pageant in Indianapolis said that she was raped by Mike Tyson. For the past 2 weeks, a three-man, three-woman grand jury in Marion County, Indiana, has been listening to evidence in the case, trying to decide whether to indict the former heavyweight champion or not. This afternoon in Indianapolis, Tyson arrived at the county courthouse, and since 2:50 p.m. Central Time, Tyson has been testifying behind closed doors.
Mike Tyson says he's innocent, so that's all I'm going with that. And we'll let the due process, you know, take its course.
and there were some questions of whether or not he was going to be charged.
In a normal situation, I doubt whether the charges would ever have been filed. If this had not been Mike Tyson, the initial evidence that they had probably wasn't strong enough.
So hard evidence, I don't think there was a lot of hard evidence. I think a lot of it was based on the credibility factor of the witnesses.
Mike Tyson was indicted today. Marion County, Indiana grand jury today indicted the former heavyweight champ on 4 counts. 1 count of rape, 2 counts of criminal deviant conduct, and 1 count of confinement. If convicted, Tyson could face 63 years in prison.
That the victim was led to believe that her meeting with Tyson was to be platonic. In fact, however, Tyson intended to have sexual relations with her. When she refused his advances, Tyson had forced non-consensual sex with the victim.
When we return on SportsCenter Flashback, the participants brace for a courtroom showdown. And later, Mike Tyson himself speaks about the allegations.
I don't want to touch it too much, but it's just so much bull. Yeah, I raped her. Give me a break, okay?
Turn to SportsCenter Flashback on ESPN Classic.
Welcome to Indianapolis. We're beginning at 9 o'clock Monday morning, Eastern Time. The Mike Tyson trial for rape gets underway. We expect it to be the ultimate in judicial drama. Mike Tyson, one of the world's most famous men, on trial for a most violent crime. We expect great drama involving a prosecutor, small-town guy, against the big city defense counsel. We expect the business of boxing to remain on hold until the outcome of the trial.
I represented this prosecutor's office in civil matters and was in the office on business to talk to the chief deputy. He just kind of popped a question. He grinned at me and said, "Why don't you come back and try Tyson for us?" And I remember laughing at him and saying, "When donkeys fly."
Garrison was very relaxed. Of course, it was his home turf.
I saw the prosecutor, Greg Garrison. He was homey and homespun. Vince Fuller, who was the chief defense attorney, was a starched, white-collar tax lawyer from Washington,
who not only had tried very few criminal cases, but never a rape case.
All he knew of Indianapolis was that they had some race there on Memorial Day.
My role in that particular case was to familiarize Mr. Fuller and his staff with the local criminal court system.
I guess naive as I was, I had no idea the enormity of the press coverage. And of course there were lots of people around. And it was at that time that I thought, this is something different and something I need to get organized and do something about.
I applied for a media credential with Judge Pat Gifford, and lo and behold, she sent me a little note saying, not only will I give you a media credential, but how about handling the media?
When the television trucks surrounded the city-county building and the members of the national and international media arrived, I mean, it was something to behold.
Indianapolis hadn't seen a story like this with this much media attention, probably ever.
When we come back on SportsCenter Flashback, the trial begins with the prosecution's star witness taking the stand.
Everybody will talk about the audible gasp when this kid walked in the room. She's so tiny.
I always perceived her as being a witness who would be difficult from the sense as a lawyer that she had some believability to her.
Now return to SportsCenter Flashback on ESPN Classic.
Mike Tyson was signing autographs for the half a dozen fans who were able to get inside the courtroom. And one kid said to Mike as he was signing the autograph, "Good luck, Mike. I know you're going to get off." And Tyson looked at him with this arrogant look on his face. "I'll win. I always win."
Jury selection has been completed, and soon the prosecution and defense will begin to paint the pictures of what each side contends happened during the visit to Indy, which resulted in Tyson's arrest.
I think the prosecution simply went on what was their belief, that the young victim had gone with the defendant, but had not consented to the sex.
It was the most bizarre defense you could ever imagine. It was let the buyer beware. Vince Fuller essentially told the court, everybody knows Mike Tyson's an animal. She should have known. What's she doing up in the room?
Everybody will talk about the audible gasp when this kid walked in the room. She's so tiny. She's 106 pounds and 5'6". She wasn't grown up yet.
I always perceived her as being a witness who would be difficult from the sense as a lawyer that she had some believability to her.
She was a perfect lady, very charming, very nice, very educated. Just everything was just right.
I think a lot of people were really impressed with how well she came across.
Here's a pageant contestant who has a lot of wherewithal. She's very practiced about how to speak, how to walk, how to present herself, if you will. And it came off very well in front of the jury.
Dressed in a gray suit and white blouse, the 18-year-old accuser told in a soft, occasionally wavering voice how, during a Miss Black America pageant rehearsal on July 18th, Tyson asked her out. She gave him her phone number, but she said she never expected he would call. He did at 1:30 in the morning, after she had returned to her hotel room from a concert.
Your hair's up, and you're in your jammies, and you've washed your face, and all the girls are giggling about tomorrow's events, and the former heavyweight champion of the world calls you.
She testified that Tyson said he only wanted to talk and was led to believe that he would take her to some parties. She said she even brought along a camera.
The thing that really stuck in my mind was she talked about taking her camera with her. If you had designs to seduce the world's heavyweight boxing champion, I don't think you'd take your camera along with you.
They stopped at the Canterbury Hotel because Tyson said he had to pick up his bodyguard. As they walked down the hall to room 606, they neither held hands or even touched. Once inside the room, she testified, Tyson went straight to the bedroom. She says she remained in the foyer. Tyson turned on the television, sitting at the head of the bed. After much prodding, she came into the bedroom and sat at the end of the bed. After talking and watching TV for 15 minutes, she said Tyson's voice suddenly changed, saying, "You really turned me on." At that point, she said she was going to the bathroom and told Tyson, "When I come back, I want to see Indianapolis."
And she was wonderful in the way she described him, sort of turning and going from the little namby-pamby nice guy voice to "You're turning me on," I believe, which was the quote that finally she had a blinding flash of the obvious.
When she returned from the bathroom, she said Tyson was in his underwear. She said he pulled her close to him. She said, "It's time for me to leave." He said, according to the accuser, "Don't fight me," as he removed her clothes against her will. She testified she tried to fight Tyson off. She said it was like hitting a wall. "Don't fight me, don't fight me," she quoted Tyson. At that point, she said he pulled her onto the bed and kept her down with his elbow and forearm. "Get off me, please stop. Don't fight me, just relax," said Tyson. "No, stop," she replied.
So the juxtaposition of this massive man and this little bitty, very young girl really had an impact, and I thought that impact carried right through her testimony. She was wonderful as a direct witness.
Once again, all eyes and ears were riveted on Tyson's 18-year-old accuser, who arrived at the Marion County Courthouse about an hour before being cross-examined by the Chief Defense Counsel, Vincent Fuller. That cross-examination lasted about 3.5 hours. Charlie Steiner picks up the story from Indianapolis.
Fuller asked only a handful of questions about any sex that took place in room 606 of the Canterbury Hotel. He asked, "Did you have some hopes of establishing a relationship with Mr. Tyson? I would never see him again. How could I hope to have a relationship?"
I think that during the acts and things that happened in the room, I think clearly that Vince attempted to establish that those were inconsistent with a non-consensual act.
The job of a defense attorney is to make that victim look not credible. And so they tend to bring up all of the stereotypes of the myths that, you know, your skirt was too short. What were you doing in his room at 2 in the morning?
Fuller asked, "Did you engage in any kissing or hugging with him on the bed in the bedroom?" "No," she replied, "not until he was raping me."
Once she testified, it was, people could tell. I mean, you could tell when you watched the jury that, in my opinion, that they believed what she said, and that was it.
Fuller asked the accuser if she was alarmed when Tyson first kissed her in his limousine early in the morning of July 19th. She replied, "Anybody can be fooled. Looking back now, it was stupid. But that still didn't give him a reason to do what he did." The 18-year-old accuser seemed more confident under cross-examination than she did in her direct testimony. Once again, Tyson sat and watched and showed no discernible emotion.
And the attorney is, for Tyson is trying to go after her as best he can. He's trying to get her to say that when she's in these beauty pageants, she's trying to trick the judges. And because obviously if you're capable of doing that, then you could just as easily entice Tyson. And without missing a beat, she says, "Oh no, I always look for my parents." Well, the guy was cooked. I mean, you might as well just slash his wrist right then. I mean, she couldn't have been a better witness.
Day 6 of the Mike Tyson trial included more damaging testimony against the former heavyweight champ from a doctor who examined the accuser and from the chauffeur who drove the two on the night of the incident. After Friday's session, Tyson attended a Baptist church service in Indianapolis and spoke to the congregation.
Thank you very much. I just like to thank everybody for supporting me, my pastor, Reverend Payton, my leader.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, all right? Now, you know what I mean, I fight with God, and with God I can't lose. And I love you all. Thank you.
On day 8, the court heard the 911 call that Washington made a little over 24 hours after the alleged rape occurred. But first, the accuser's mother took the stand.
When a daughter or a son tells a parent about an event in their life that may be bad, the parent has kind of this emotional feeling or attachment for the child instantly, that the child's not making this up.
She portrayed a change in the daughter from before to after that was visible when she came to town.
The accuser's mother testified about her arrival in Indianapolis and her first meeting with her daughter after the alleged rape. It wasn't her, she said. She was just going through the motions. I was trying to make her smile. I asked her if she wanted to pull out of the pageant. She said, "No, Ma, I've come this far."
For Desiree, who is already, has been brought up into society as an independent, self-assured, confident woman. She may be angry, she may be displaying hostility, but she's going to go on with her everyday acts of life.
The only cross-examination that Chief Defense Counsel Fuller could muster was this: "You love your daughter very much, don't you?" "Yes, I do," she replied.
He immediately stopped and said, "I have no more questions of this witness." And you'd think, you know, when we got in the jury room, we talked about that, and says, you'd think you want to break her down, and you know, she's not on their side. But she started crying, and he dismissed, said, "I have no question." Didn't even ask her anything. Surprising. It was really shocking.
It's my feeling that Vince would have perceived that at the time her testimony had not been damaging to the client's case, and therefore a limited cross-examination was required.
We really didn't get into the specifics with her mother as to how the conversation first took place, exactly what questions were asked, how much her mother pressed her on her story, and all of that. I think that would have been a major difference.
The prosecution rested late Tuesday afternoon, but not before the 911 emergency tape was played on this tape deck in the courtroom. The accuser called the Indianapolis 911 operator at 1:20 Friday morning, July 19th, almost 24 hours after the alleged rape took place.
And I was like saying, no, get off me, please, get off me. And he was like, don't fight me. And the person was a lot stronger than I was, and he just did what he wanted. And I was saying, stop, please, stop. And he just didn't stop. Yeah, I just feel that people think it's my fault for going in his room, but I was just naive to believe that he was, you know, a nice person. Irregardless, he said no.
The majority of rape victims are going to blame themselves. They're going to walk back through that situation and beat themselves up a whole lot more than the general public is going to scrutinize, or friends and family are going to look at them.
There was a conference in Judge Gifford's chambers involving all of the attorneys, defense and prosecution. And Tyson was at the defense table all by himself. That arrogance with which he carried himself into the court to that point was not just washed away, it had vanished.
When SportsCenter Flashback continues, the trial takes a bizarre twist.
As I'm going by the Indianapolis Athletic Club, I notice that it's on fire. The jurors are in that location.
We now return to SportsCenter Flashback on ESPN Classic.
The sketch artist would sit there and sketch him while he's sitting there by himself in these recesses. And they developed somewhat of a little relationship with him, to the point where Tyson would sign some of these sketches for him, for the sketch artist, which was truly unbelievable as well.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to SportsCenter. I'm Tom Mees. The Mike Tyson trial, day number 9, and another strange twist to a trial that has had its share of drama so far. The drama today centering on an early morning fire.
The fire began a little after midnight in the Indianapolis Athletic Club, where the jurors had been sequestered.
I noticed that it's on fire. Now, I don't connect the fire at all initially, but then know that the jurors are in that location.
Bailiff comes knocking on the door. There's a fire. It's not a drill. It's a real fire. We got to get out of here. Let's take the steps. So we all threw on what we had and got out of there.
It was pretty scary to think about it, that, there was talk on, did somebody set the fire? Is somebody trying to, influence the jury? Is somebody trying to get a mistrial?
None of the jurors was hurt, but 3 people, including 2 firemen, were killed. 12 were injured in dousing the flames.
Well, of course, the main concern was the jurors, and trying to find some place in the middle of the night that would take jurors in and keep them in a secure place.
Assistant Prosecutor Barbara Trathan said that none of the jurors had been tainted, as they were all let out of the hotel at the same time under tight security by court bailiffs who would not allow anyone to get near them.
Is the jury okay?
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, no fears that...
Apparently, they have no idea.
How does this impact on the jury, do you suppose?
None. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. Our hearts go out to those firemen and their families, though. It's a terrible loss.
The jurors spent the day being moved to another hotel and having their smoky clothes dry cleaned.
Well, the next day, there's black armbands and all. Police officers. We didn't know why. Did somebody get killed or what? Then Judge Gifford called us into her chambers, each one of us, with both attorneys, and asked us if the fire had any bearing on us to go on with the trial. And one jury did bail out.
We were concerned about whether the jurors would think somebody set this fire on purpose so that this jury would go away. And if they felt that way, would they be able to continue?
But at the time, we did mention with each other, said, well, was that fire cause meant for us? If it was, we were on the 7th floor, 8th floor, whatever. And the fire was on the 1st floor. If somebody was meant for us, why would they start down there?
So we just wanted to be sure in our own mind that each juror was satisfied that it was an accidental fire, and yeah, they were shook up, but they could go on.
Indianapolis Mayor Stephen Goldsmith ordered tightened security at the courthouse. More county police were in evidence, an additional metal detector, and a bomb-sniffing dog searched throughout the 2nd floor where Judge Patricia Gifford's courtroom is located. Meanwhile, the flag outside the courthouse flies at half-staff for those killed in the fire at the hotel in which the jurors had been staying.
When SportsCenter Flashback continues, the fire caused the defense to start its case a day later than expected. They realized that drastic measures would be needed to win.
Mike Tyson was not prepared as a witness to take the stand. You got to protect him.
Turn to SportsCenter Flashback on ESPN Classic.
I think we knew all along that Fuller was going to put him on the stand.
I think he had to go up there because there was an awful lot of evidence against him.
Shortly after 4 p.m. Eastern Time today, Mike Tyson took the witness stand to defend himself on charges of raping an 18-year-old beauty pageant contestant last July.
And if he wanted any chance at all, he was going to have to try to acquit himself by demonstrating his own humanity and coming up with some plausible explanation for some of this.
You're much more comfortable in trying a case where a client is not exposed.
Tyson said the accuser suggested they go to a dinner or a movie. Tyson said he then replied, "I want to be with you." I explained that I wanted to expletive her. She said, "That was kind of cold." Then she said, "Sure, just give me a call."
In many ways, Mike Tyson was a babbling idiot. And that's not, to say that he doesn't have the smarts to be able to do it. He's just a guy who doesn't know how to speak in public.
Once in room 606, Tyson said they were talking and kissing. All the while, he had his hand on her leg. Tyson testified, "I don't remember her going to the bathroom. I slid her down the bed while kissing her. She undressed herself." Tyson continued, "I was having oral sex with her. She asked for intercourse." After the sex was finished, Tyson said he offered to have her stay. She declined. He said he didn't want to walk her downstairs. In the final minute of direct testimony, Tyson testified, "She never told me to stop. She never said that it hurt. She never said no."
The next day came Tyson's cross-examination by Greg Garrison.
In a surprisingly brief cross-examination that lasted only an hour and 20 minutes, Special Prosecutor Greg Garrison asked Tyson about Friday's testimony, in which Tyson claimed to have told the accuser that he wanted to expletive her. But Garrison wanted to know why Tyson never mentioned using that four-letter word when testifying to the grand jury. Tyson responded, "I didn't feel comfortable saying it at that particular time."
He's too embarrassed, but he's too embarrassed to say anything. But he says to strangers all the time. He's telling us and the jury that he doesn't like to say it to strangers. What do we call these women he just meets? They're strangers too.
Tyson testified yesterday he had tried to call the accuser at her hotel several times during the day of July 18th, but Garrison said there was no record of any calls to the Omni from Tyson's hotel or his limousine until 1:36 early Thursday morning. Yesterday, Tyson said it took just a few seconds to get from the accuser's hotel to the Canterbury. Today, he testified they were talking and kissing and hugging for several minutes before arriving at his hotel. In fact, Tyson testified today he instructed the accuser before she came downstairs to wear something loose when she met him in the limousine. "How come?" asked Garrison. "Because I had intentions of doing it in the limo."
Mike Tyson was not prepared as a witness to take the stand. You got to protect him. Instead, it was just kind of, hey, go ahead and ask Mike anything you want to.
Those are risky situations because once they're up there, there's nothing you can do but to hope that they tell it in a way that is persuasive.
After 14 days and close to 50 witnesses called, the Mike Tyson trial is all but over now. The impassioned closing arguments were heard this morning at the Marion County Courthouse, and then early this afternoon, the case was finally sent to the jury. And now Mike Tyson's fate lies with the 8 men and 4 women who comprise that jury. Charlie Steiner describes the scene.
The tension in the courtroom was stifling, the drama overwhelming, as the accuser and her mother, along with an Indianapolis police detective, sat in the front row of the spectators area, directly behind the prosecutor's table. The accuser listened intently, as Assistant Prosecutor Barbara Trathan told the jury, the defendant used his fame and reputation in the same identical manner as a thug in the alley uses a knife and a gun to accomplish the purpose of forced intercourse, rape. Tyson's chief defense attorney, Vincent Fuller, continued to emphasize that the accuser was in it for the money. Speaking from behind a podium, occasionally raising his voice just short of a full shout, Fuller said that the accuser had ample time and opportunity to leave had she not wanted to have sex with Tyson. Mike Tyson's future is now in the hands of the jury.
And the first ballot on the rape was like 6-6.
And all 4 women said not guilty.
What wasn't done was to get into the specifics of, first of all, why she went to the hotel room, knowing as she did about Mike Tyson's reputation and all that. Because most jurors wanted to know the answer to that question.
The defense didn't challenge Garrison at all on that, any of those things. And that didn't prove reasonable doubt at all. Nothing during that trial showed me reasonable doubt.
Second, you needed to go into much more detail in terms of exactly what happened, almost second by second. That's the way you dissect a case when there's a rape allegation.
There was no debate whether sex took place. It was a matter of whether Tyson had consent. And I think those lines were very blurry in this case.
When we come back on SportsCenter Flashback, the jury reaches its verdict.
Somebody said, he's guilty one, he's guilty of all, let's go home.
I'll return to SportsCenter Flashback on ESPN Classic.
And it's approaching 10 o'clock. And we figure, okay, we're going to go home, get a good night's sleep, and tomorrow we're going to get the verdict.
I remember the bailiff come in and said, well, the judge wants to stop tonight. It's about 10 o'clock. The judge wants to stop, and we're going to take us up tomorrow. One juror says, no, we're going to get this done. We're almost there. We're going to get this done tonight. We're going home.
Well, the feeling around the courthouse is we were going to be in for a very long night. And as it turned out, we were not in for a very long night.
Then, after going around the table talking, and everybody brought up the reason they voted the way they did, then it became unanimous.
Somebody said, he's guilty one, he's guilty of all, let's go home. And that's what we did. I don't think that's quite right, but we all agreed upon that.
What I remember is after we got through the third count, before the foreman signed the forms, the verdict forms, he asked each individual, as he went around the table, is this your verdict? If you're uncomfortable with it, we'll go back to the hotel and start over again in the morning. And everybody was comfortable.
I have never had an adrenaline rush like that when I heard that statement that a verdict will be announced in 20 minutes.
Suddenly, the adrenaline machine is pumping overtime. Yo, Brofsky! Got the verdict. And we just went into overtime.
From a judge's standpoint, of course, it was important that there be the courtroom be quiet and calm, and that everyone was prepared for whatever might happen.
So if it's good news, if it's bad news, suck it up, behave yourselves, act like what you are, and we'll scream and yell later.
And as Tyson walked up the stairs, our eyes connected. And he stopped halfway up the steps and gave me a look that was just frightening, scary.
My image right before the verdict is seeing Mike Tyson sitting in that leather chair all alone, absolutely alone. Nobody else around.
He would have all these people around him and all this money and all this fame and all this glamour, but at those worst moments or saddest moments, he was alone.
He must have sat there for 10 minutes. And it must have been an eternity for the guy. And I, you know, all I could think about was, God, where are his lawyers?
I was at the hotel and got there when I'm picked up. And Mike was with his friends and came in separately.
And here's Mike Tyson sitting by himself at the defense table, all by himself. And, you know, why somebody didn't come out and hold his hand?
We got there as quick as we could, and I went right to the table.
It didn't get the impression that he was very close to his defense team.
I think you have to be in this business, or maybe be a race driver to understand what the adrenaline rush was like waiting.
After 14 days, nearly 15 witnesses, the testimony in the Mike Tyson trial is finally over. All that was left for the verdict. We got that verdict a little less than an hour ago.
It wasn't unexpected, but it still shook us. It wasn't an outcome that we thought couldn't possibly happen. But on the third week, the opening day of the third week, they took it to the jury. We thought when it went so long that maybe it would have to go until tomorrow. But just before the end, they went on longer, and they got a verdict, and Charlie Steiner was there. Charlie, tell us about it.
Gary, we got the word about 10:25 that the jury had reached a verdict. About 25 minutes later, the jury had returned to Judge Patricia Gifford's courtroom, and it was guilty on all 3 counts for Mike Tyson. Guilty, Class B felony rape, maximum 20 years. Guilty, criminal deviant conduct, Class B felony, 20 years. And a second criminal deviant conduct charge, maximum sentence 20 years. Mike Tyson left the courthouse at 11:02 tonight, about 10 minutes or so after the verdict was rendered. He was accompanied by Don King and his close friends John Horn and Rory Holloway. We did not see in evidence, however, tonight, Camille Ewald, who had been with Tyson throughout the trial. Of course, Ewald, the housemaid of the late Cus D'Amato, she had been in the front row of the courthouse every day of the trial from about the 3rd day on. She was not with Tyson tonight. It's almost eerie that February 10th, about this time 2 years ago in Tokyo, Japan, Mike Tyson suffered the worst loss of his professional career to Buster Douglas. And isn't it ironic that 2 years within the hour, Mike Tyson is convicted on all 3 counts of rape and criminal deviant conduct.
I had a chill up my spine when I heard that word, when they read the 3 counts. Guilty on the first count, guilty on the second, and guilty on the third. I mean, I felt a chill.
There was disappointment, and I'm sure there was anger in some way, but never displayed. It took it exactly the way I think you should take those things.
A lot of relief to know that what I thought was going to happen did take place. And you start thinking immediately about going to bed.
And I don't think they took into account the zeal with which he would be prosecuted, or the commitment of the young lady who was the victim in pursuing this.
Reaction, as you might expect, is just now beginning to trickle in from literally all around the world.
The only guy who was going to lick Tyson was Tyson. He was always like a time bomb, self-destruct. I also made a crack a while back, and I said, oldest 25-year-old guy I ever saw.
Did you expect this?
No, I didn't expect this. No. I expected Tyson to be broke and for his career to be ruined. You know, I figured he'd do it in the ring because that's the way he's been going. He acts like he doesn't want to fight.
I have absolutely no thoughts about Tyson. He's a common criminal who's getting what he deserves. I have absolutely no thoughts about Mike Tyson. He's finished, washed up, deserves to be, period. He's a thug.
And we've seen so many times recently where it doesn't matter what a superstar does, it's okay. He can brag about it in his books, he can demonstrate it in the public eye, and as long as it's him, it's all right. And I think that tonight, one time anyway, this kind of behavior has not been tolerated, at least not in this county.
When SportsCenter Flashback continues, Mike Tyson goes from number 1 to number 922-335.
We now return to SportsCenter Flashback on ESPN Classic.
I predicted that a long time ago. When I fought him in 1988, I predicted Tyson would be in jail in 5 to 6 years. And it didn't take too long after that before he was in jail.
Tyson said, I shouldn't be in jail for this, but there are a lot of others that I should be in jail for.
6 weeks after the conviction, Mike Tyson found out his immediate future.
Good morning. This is a SportsCenter special report. I'm Bill Patrick. Just moments ago, former heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the rape of Desiree Washington last July. A 10-year sentence, 4 years of which were suspended, which means an actual sentence of 6 years in jail. A petition for bail has been denied. He was also fined $30,000.
There was still, I think, you know, a certain defiance and a feeling by Tyson and his people that there was just no way this was gonna fly, and that it was gonna send him to prison.
Tyson arrived at the Marion County Courthouse a free man. But within 3 hours, Tyson's life would be changed forever. After his attorney Vincent Fuller asked Judge Patricia Gifford for a suspended sentence and probation, Tyson addressed the judge for 10 minutes. He told her, "I'm sorry Miss Washington isn't here. I could apologize to her." But Tyson also said, "I didn't rape anyone. I didn't attempt to rape anyone. I agree I've done something I didn't mean to. I got a little carried away with the situation. It got a little out of hand."
Everyone expects the person to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that," so on. He obviously did not do that.
Later, Tyson said, "I'm not guilty of this crime. I didn't hurt anybody. No black eyes, no broken ribs." Tyson finished his rambling statement by saying, "I don't come here begging for mercy, ma'am. I've been crucified and humiliated worldwide. I'm prepared to deal with whatever you have to offer me."
There's points of view, clearly, in this country that in the event that you go to a trial and you lose, that you have to be contrite. I think you can express feelings of regret being in situations, but if you have a genuine feeling in your heart that you weren't involved in the event, I don't think there's any reason that you should ever relinquish that.
Judge Gifford, as she sentenced Tyson to 10 years in prison, 4 of those suspended, told Tyson, "Something needs to be done about the attitude you displayed here."
In Indiana, the presumptive sentence for rape is 10 years. I took it down to 6 years, considering that he had not been convicted of this before. And I think his belief that he had not really committed a crime, he surrendered, he came to the grand jury, and all those things were considered as mitigating factors. So I gave him the 6-year sentence.
Tyson was led out of court by a half-dozen Marion County Sheriff's deputies. He would be frisked and fingerprinted and handcuffed and then driven 40 miles to the Reception and Diagnostic Center where he is scheduled to spend the first 3 weeks of his prison term.
I'll never forget the first meal that he was served was tamale pie. And
I'm not sure tomorrow he probably is the way anybody ought to have to start their first day being locked up.
Tyson awakened Friday morning at 5:30 Eastern Time at the Reception and Diagnostic Center. He met his 87 fellow inmates at breakfast a half hour later. Later in the day, Tyson received a physical exam, but for the most part, he spent the day behind bars in his prison cell. Prison officials have described him as quiet, cooperative, and low-key.
The media's focus emphasized the celebrity of Mike Tyson, his fall, and his future. But what of Desiree Washington? She would graduate from Providence College in 1995, later to become a teacher. Greg Garrison later confirmed that right after the indictment came out, Washington was offered close to $1 million to drop the lawsuit. She refused.
I knew very well about what Miss Washington's situation was. She was a shattered person from this. As she said, raped repeatedly, once by the defendant and then many times by the coverage that kept bringing it up. Everything she'd ever, virtually every boy she'd ever kissed, it seemed like, became the subject of scrutiny.
In many ways, it's probably too bad, because I think she was looked upon by many people as not the victim here. Mike Tyson was looked upon as the victim. That shouldn't have happened to her.
But I think the message also came out loud and clearly to any female that's been raped, that even if it is someone of great stature, that you can still report it and that person can still be convicted.
Tyson would wind up serving 3 years in prison before being released in March of 1995. He violated the terms of his parole by being found guilty of assaulting 2 motorists in a 1998 traffic accident in Maryland. And for that, he served another 3 months behind bars in a Maryland jail.
There's nothing but ladies in the sheriff's office. So the lady said, well, what did you get convicted for to be here? Well, I said rape, and I said real loud, and my friend said, no. He said, sexual assault. And the lady started laughing. That's rape. They said I raped somebody, you know what I mean? But after the all ladies came, hugged me, kissed me, I signed their autograph, because anybody that's a sophisticated adult and they seen the situation that happened, they know that's bull. You know what I mean?
But you didn't rape her.
Listen, we're not gonna go. I don't want to touch it too much, but it's so much bull. Yeah, I raped her. Give me a break, okay?
He would finally get his shot at Evander Holyfield's world title 5 years after they were originally scheduled to meet. Holyfield knocked Tyson out and won the now very famous rematch 8 months later when the former champion bit a chunk of Holyfield's ear off. That cost Tyson his boxing license for 1 full year. And that's this edition of SportsCenter Flashback. I'm Carl Ravitch. We leave you now with some personal thoughts from our Charlie Steiner, taped the day after Tyson's guilty verdict came down.
I've known Mike Tyson now for almost 5 years, and during that period of time, we've sat down and done lengthy interviews as many as 15 times. Can't help but get the feeling that boxing is the only thing he has ever wanted to do for a living. Losing his ability to fight is almost as devastating, maybe equally as devastating, as losing his freedom itself. Tyson climbed these stairs every day for the past 2 weeks. There are no more cameras now, no more flash bulbs, no more screaming fans. Another sad chapter in Mike Tyson's life is about to begin.